My name is Doug, and I welcome you to this workshop, which is brought to you by the JFT Online Group. The purpose is to review the 12 traditions in a way that the viewer can easily absorb the content and the real purpose of the whole 12 traditions. We hope you will find it useful. Please keep the sound on your device on, because it is essential to gain the full benefit of this workshop.
As newcomers, many of us say to ourselves, let the group officers worry about the traditions. I'm just an average member. They're rules for running groups, aren't they? And everybody tells me, there are no rules in AA. Then we look closer, and find that the traditions are not rules, and they are not just for officers. They have deep meaning for each one of us, as the 12 steps do. Like the steps, the traditions were not figured out in advance, as courses of action against future problems. The action came first. Pioneer AA groups, with nothing to go on except the trial and error and try again method, soon discovered, well, that way didn't work. But the other one did. And this one works even better. Both successes and failures were reported in letters to AA headquarters, eventually to become the General Service Office. In went these shared experiences of AA's first 10 years, and out came the 12 traditions. In 1946, then in the long form, they were published in the AA Grapevine. By 1950, they had been condensed to their present form and were adopted by AA's first international convention. Our traditions are a guide to better ways of working and living, co-founder Bill W. said. And they are to group survival what AA's 12 steps are to each member's sobriety and peace of mind. Most individuals cannot recover unless there is a group. The group must survive or the individual will not. Our brother the noisy drunk affords the simplest illustration of this tradition. If he insists on disrupting the meeting, we invite him to leave, and we bring him back when he's in better shape to hear the message. We are putting the common welfare first. But it is in his welfare, too, if he's ever going to get sober, the group must go on functioning, ready for him. Yet he is only one rare aspect of the problem. When we do get sober in AA, we shed a few small bits of the big ego. We admit, I can't handle alcohol, and I can't stay away from it on my own. Fine so far. Then we find there is plenty of that ego still with us. It may lead us to take other members' inventories and to gossip about their supposed shortcomings. It may lure us into hogging the floor at every discussion meeting. Oh well, it's a selfish program, isn't it? After all the miseries of active alcoholism, why shouldn't we indulge ourselves a little? We all know one good reason why we shouldn't. Self-indulgence of this kind is an immediate personal danger. It threatens the individual's own sobriety. More than that, it threatens the very basis of our sobriety, the unity of the AA group. For a self-righteous gossip can damage the mutual trust that is vital to every group. And a compulsive talker can ruin the effectiveness of a discussion meeting. I've stopped going to that group. Nobody but Joe can get a word in edgewise. When AA was very young, the first members clearly saw the preservation of its unity as a life or death matter for themselves and for the alcoholics still unrecovered. The first tradition states this aim, and it is the common aim of all 12 traditions. The second tradition states, for our group purpose there is but one ultimate authority, a loving God as he may express himself in our group conscience. Our leaders are but trusted servants, they do not govern. If a group wants to be a part of the whole AA service structure, it elects a GSR, General Service Representative, with a 2-year term. GSRs elect area committee members and then join them in electing a delegate from their area to the annual General Service Conference. The conference is about the closest approximation of a government that AA has. It produces opinions on important matters of policy. It approves the choice of some trustee nominees for the General Service Board and directly elects others. But neither the conference nor the board can give orders to any group or member. Then who's in charge around here? AA is a spiritual movement, and so the ultimate authority is the spiritual concept of the group conscience. Its voice is heard when a well-informed group gathers to arrive at a decision. The result rests on more than arithmetic, a yes and no count. In addition, minority ideas get thoughtful attention. The third tradition declares that the only requirement for AA membership is a desire to stop drinking. Isn't every organization entitled to have rules for membership? Why did AA decide to forego this privilege, to be inclusive, never exclusive? That's easy. Early members tried it the other way, and it just didn't work. As the fellowship was nearing its 10-year mark, the office that served as headquarters asked the groups to list their membership rules and send them in. Bill W. recalled, "If all of these edicts had been in force everywhere at once, it would have been practically impossible for any alcoholic to have ever joined AA. About 9/10 of our oldest and best members could never have got by. So the rule books went out the window and were replaced by one uncomplicated sentence, Tradition 3. But, somebody may ask, isn't this tradition itself a rule? It does state one requirement for membership. Let's read it again, and ask another question. Who determines whether or not newcomers qualify, whether they do want to stop drinking? Obviously, nobody except the newcomers themselves. Everybody else simply has to take their word for it. In fact, they don't even have to say it aloud. And that's fortunate for many of us who arrived at AA with only a half-hearted desire to stay sober. We are alive because the AA road stayed open to us."
The problem faced by this tradition isn't just past AA history. It keeps coming up, for instance, when a group debates whether to exclude alcoholics who have problems other than alcohol or have differing lifestyles. The tradition mentions no such additional requirements, no demand that prospective members must not have a history of drug abuse, a certain lifestyle, or an institutional background. All alcoholics are welcome. What about the group that seems to impose extra requirements, beyond a desire to stop drinking? This might be a special interest group or collection of groups in which, for example, each member must be a physician, or a young person, a man, a woman, a priest, or a law enforcement officer. By their own account, those attending special interest groups consider themselves AA members first. They attend general membership meetings as well as those that fill their other individual needs, and they remain devoted to AA's primary purpose. These special interest groups offer only one instance of the diverse and inclusive membership within our fellowship. Our traditions allow unparalleled freedom, not only to every AA member, but to every AA group.
The fourth tradition. Each group should be autonomous except in matters affecting other groups or AA as a whole. A member who does any amount of traveling finds the AA spirit much the same everywhere. But apart from this inward kinship, there are vast differences among groups. Here, the traveler finds 3 members discussing the steps in somebody's living room. There, 300 listening to speakers in a church auditorium. In one part of the U.S., respectful silence greets the speaker who begins, "My name is Anne, and I am an alcoholic." In another, everybody happily shouts, "Hi, Anne." And in many other places, she may introduce herself with her full name, at a 1-hour meeting or a 90-minute meeting. In each neighborhood in every part of the world reached by AA, the local group is free to work out its own customs. As always, freedom brings responsibility. Because each group is autonomous, it's up to each group to avoid any action that might harm AA, and there have been such actions, or this tradition would be unnecessary. Implicit throughout AA's traditions, Bill W. wrote, is the confession that our fellowship has its sins. We admit that we have character defects as a society, and these defects threatens us continually. Blown up to multiple size, the big ego may inspire one group to take over all the public information work for its area, without consulting any of the other local groups. Once the group has decided, we have all the answers, the lid's off. The group may then decide that, let's say, the 11th tradition is an outdated technicality, this is a competitive age. We're going to come right out and give AA some good, vigorous promoting. To the general public, this one conspicuous group as AA, its antics reflect, not only on the ignored neighboring groups, but on the entire fellowship. In a way, the fourth tradition is like the fourth step. It suggests that the AA group should take honest inventory of itself, asking about each of its independently planned actions. Would this break any tradition? Like the individual member who chooses to make the steps his or her guide toward happy sobriety, the wise group recognizes that the traditions are not hindering technicalities, they are proved guides toward the chief objective of all AA groups. The fifth tradition, each group has but one primary purpose, to carry its message to the alcoholic who still suffers. Every newcomer learns, some of us the hard way, that the business of staying sober must have top priority. If we fail at that, we can't succeed at anything else. The fifth tradition tells us that groups should remember their one primary purpose. Often, unthinking enthusiasm puts a group off the main track. One, for instance, offered an expanded AA program that included helping newcomers to find jobs. Tradition 5 doesn't frown on the individual AA who tells another about a good opening. But when the group turns itself into an employment agency, newcomers may get confused about their primary purpose. AA's function is to help them get sober, then they can find work for themselves. Using discretion, a member may lend a few dollars needed for a meal or a hotel room, or may even invite a broke alcoholic to be a temporary houseguest. But the AA group as a whole is not a friendly finance company, nor a welfare department, nor a housing bureau. Even when acting on their own, as individual members, AA laypeople certainly shouldn't award themselves honorary medical degrees and hand out diagnoses and prescriptions and amateur analysis of other people's neuroses. Exactly because this personal failing is so common, the AA group in all its dealings should be extra careful to emphasize that it is not invading the medical field. Through the personal experiences of its members, it is qualified to carry only one message: how an alcoholic can recover in AA, that's all. Yet one group recently felt itself equipped to set up an alcoholism information center. The temptation is understandable. It was even stronger at the time this tradition was written, because public ignorance about alcoholism as an illness was more widespread than it is now. Since then, other agencies have sprung up to assume the task of educating the general public on alcoholism. That is not AA's purpose, but these agencies also are trying to help the active alcoholic. They are our friends, and Tradition 6 marks the boundaries of the relationship. The sixth tradition. An AA group ought never endorse, finance or lend the AA name to any related facility or outside enterprise, lest problems of money, property and prestige divert us from our primary purpose. The related facility may be an outside group combating alcoholism, or an enterprise that AAs want to start. It was the latter that most often confronted the young fellowship. Outside agencies were pretty scarce in those days, and some members thought AA should cover the whole alcoholism field. Led by a super promoter, as the 12 and 12 describes him, one group built an all-purpose center, including a section for drying out treatment. Picture any group tackling such a project. Arguments over cost, architecture, staff, fees, medication, and rules might even make the local paper. And pity the poor newcomer straying into the group. We'll get around to you in a minute. Though that ambitious center failed, some individual members have since founded successful clubhouses, rest farms, halfway houses, etc. The enterprises are run by these AAs and patronized by other members or prospective members. But money and property are involved. Therefore, it has proved wise to keep the operation of the facility completely separate from that of any AA group, and to keep AA, or terms like 12th step, out of the name. Toward outside agencies dealing with alcoholism, the AA policy is cooperation but not affiliation. A group cooperates, for example, by welcoming referrals from clinics or by sponsoring AA groups in institutions. But in one area, money for a rehab was solicited at an AA meeting, implying affiliation. In another, AA was listed among beneficiaries of a united fund drive. The seventh tradition. Every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. We do have to be practical. A group can hardly hold its regular meetings on a street corner, and an empty basket won't fill a coffee urn. As soon as we become active in a group, we learn how many expenses are involved in making its meetings effective. Then our horizons broaden. What about that intergroup or central office so many of us called to ask for help? Phone companies don't give free service. Beyond our own locality, we learn about the AA General Service Office and the work it does for groups everywhere. AA activity is self-supporting at all levels, and in every case the responsibility comes right back to us, the individual members, for we are AA. Perhaps, especially when we are very new, our contributions clink, rather than rustle. The first members were in the same fix, and it seemed to them that AA would need more outside help than the modest gifts then coming in. Their plans required grand-scale philanthropy. Tradition 6 hadn't evolved yet. Bill W. recalled a scheme for a chain of hospitals. But John D. Rockefeller Jr., an early friend, said, "I am afraid that money will spoil this thing." A few AAs had already reached the same conclusion. Gradually, this minority became a majority as experience showed that members themselves could provide enough to finance AA's proper aim. In its simplest application, Tradition 7 is easily understood. When we hear about a new AA group being started with funds from a federal anti-poverty program, our quick reaction is, somebody goofed. But then we come to borderline cases. Groups put on a raffle for the benefit of their central office and invite the public to buy tickets. A hometown paper runs an ad for an AA dance and show. Both projects would be routine for any other society. For us, both mean that we've got the handout again, asking non-members for money.
Often, of course, we don't have to ask. AA is now high on the worthy cause list. GSO and groups politely turn down many unsolicited gifts and bequests. In Tradition 7, there's a note of realism. Handsome gifts may have strings attached. We even put a limit of £5,000 on the amount members may leave to AA in their wills or contribute annually while living, so that none of us can buy influence in AA, no matter how rich we are. Money may pose a different problem if a group treasury grows too fat, beyond a prudent reserve. Squabbling over uses for the spare cash, groups have lost their unity and strayed from their purpose. But there's one simple solution that strengthens our unity and advances our purpose: give the excess to AA activities and services.
The eighth tradition, Alcoholics Anonymous should remain forever non-professional, but our service centers may employ special workers. Spiritual as it is, AA remains very much of this world. The eighth tradition, like the seventh, focuses on a vulgar 5-letter word that isn't actually mentioned in either: money. Many of us have had to explain to some cynical prospect, "No, I'm not a social worker. I don't get paid for talking with you. I'm doing it because it's the best way to stay sober myself." This does not mean, of course, that the idea of turning professional has never entered any AA's mind. In the lean years, Bill W. did think of becoming a lay therapist to earn money through his experience in helping alcoholics. But, with a strong nudge from the group conscience, he soon realized that he could never hang out a leaflet reading, "Bill W., AA therapist, $10 an hour." It became clear to the early members that no AA should ever ask or accept payment for carrying this message to somebody else, person to person and face to face. But new questions arose as membership grew and the word of hope spread, sending thousands of alcoholics in search of AA. The first intergroups or central offices were usually manned by AA volunteers. Now, most such offices are so busy that full-time employees are needed as well. Naturally, AAs are better suited to such jobs than are non-members, but these AAs then being paid for doing 12th step work? No. In the office, they are just paving the way for this work. Arranging to get a sick drunk into a hospital, telling a shaky newcomer where the nearest meeting is tonight, they are helping to make it possible for that alcoholic to hear the message, person to person and face to face. A similar development has taken place at the Fellowship's headquarters. Once a tiny office for one co-founder, Bill, and one secretary, it has grown into the present General Service Office, fully staffed, with a big mailroom keeping the lines of communication open throughout AA worldwide. The employees, both AA and non-alcoholic, are paid on a scale comparable to that in profit-making enterprises, so that the office force can function dependably. And the AA staff members are in exactly the same position as the AA intergroup employees.
Suppose you drop in at GSO one day when you're in York. Staff members who pause to chat with you may have been working on next year's conference or corresponding with a group in your home area, helping it to carry the message more effectively. For that, they are paid for their work. But you may also hear them mention to other staff members plans for taking a newcomer to a meeting in the evening or for giving an AA talk to a neighborhood group the next week. For that, they are paid only with their own continuing sobriety. In these office jobs and in other assignments, members are actually paid for their business and professional skills. Working at a GSO desk, on conference-approved books and pamphlets, these AAs use their abilities as correspondents, managers, writers, editors, artists, proofreaders, as well as their understanding of AA from the inside. On occasion, Volunteers have given their time and talent to all these services, and their contributions are deeply appreciated. But what if the fellowship decided that all such assignments should be handled only by unpaid volunteers? In present-day AA, there's too great a volume of work to be done in spare hours here and there, and only the rich or the retired could afford to work full-time. If we tried to find in this limited group people qualified for particular tasks, obviously the field would be narrowed down, too often, down to nobody at all. There would be another problem in using volunteers alone. It seems ungrateful, or, at least, it's socially awkward, to criticize or reject a job done for free. But paid jobs for AA get quite a going over. Take our literature, for instance. Whatever the subject, we want to be sure that each piece expresses as clearly as possible the view of the group conscience of AA as a whole. So any new project must first be approved by the conference. Once it is in process, the Literature Committee of the General Service Board keeps a careful eye on it at every stage. The ninth tradition. AA, as such, ought never be organized, but we may create service boards or committees directly responsible to those they serve. The words, "Let's keep it simple," were the last Bill W. heard from his fellow founder of AA, shortly before Dr. Bob's death in 1950. Aware that it means our recovery program, Bill later wrote, "We need to distinguish sharply between spiritual simplicity and functional simplicity. When we get into questions of action by groups, by areas, and by AA as a whole, we find that we must to some extent organize to carry the message, or else face chaos. And chaos is not simplicity. When Tradition 9 speaks of AA as such, it goes to the heart of the AA experience, to the spiritual simplicity of one alcoholic saying, silently perhaps, help, and another alcoholic's answering, I know how you feel. We're here to help you. Such a relationship couldn't be organized. Or could it? A non-member familiar with modern business procedures might examine the AA practice of sponsorship and see it as a haphazard operation. How about computerizing it? Then an AA behind an intergroup desk might say, so you want help? First, you need the right sponsor. We have personality profiles of all our sponsors fed into our computer. We'll match you up to the best one for you if you'll just fill out this questionnaire. Where are you going? Come back. That would be an attempt to organize AA as such. Please, nobody get any ideas.
But in action by groups, we find that we do need some degree of organization. If everybody thinks somebody else is going to make the coffee, what's the result? No coffee. To avoid such a disaster, one or more members agree to be responsible for preparing meeting refreshments. All the way from coffee brewers to trustees on the General Service Board, those who take part in AA service work are assuming responsibility, not taking on authority. Here, Traditions 2 and 9 interlock. Group officers are responsible to the members of the group, intergroup committees, to the groups in one locality, institutions committees, to AA groups in treatment facilities and correctional facilities, area committees, to all groups in their areas, conference delegates and committees, to all groups, the General Service Office and the board's committees, to all groups and members everywhere. In an average business corporation, the board has final power to determine company plans and policy. Our board of trustees serves in a custodial capacity. Trustees vote at the conference, but as individuals, with one vote apiece. In industry, branch offices jump when the home office speaks. Our GSO is just a clearinghouse of AA information, offering suggestions based on experiences reported to it by groups. And yet, with so small a degree of organization, AA miraculously does work. One reason may be that Tradition 5 applies to each AA committee and board as directly as it does to each AA group. By cleaving to this one primary purpose in all its activities, the fellowship retains spiritual simplicity. To diffuse that purpose, to embroil AA in issues apart from its true concern, would create dangerous complications. The 10th tradition states that, Alcoholics Anonymous has no opinion on outside issues, hence the AA name ought never be drawn into public controversy. Perhaps we should just let the illustrations on this page do the talking. The 11th tradition states, our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. We need always maintain personal anonymity at the level of press, radio and films. Information about AA is being offered to the public through all the communications media, in print and over the air. On radio, it's easy to guard members' anonymity, of course. But TV, not in wide use when the traditions were written, is another matter. According to a conference opinion, members are breaking their anonymity when they are identified on TV as AAs and their faces are shown, whether or not their names are given. And yet this medium, with its vast audiences, cannot be ignored. Different techniques have been employed to preserve anonymity on TV. Masks, screens, backlighting that shows AAs only as silhouettes, camera angles showing them only from the back. The shadow method diagrammed here is simple, relaxed, and appropriate. For we are not selling personalities, we are explaining AA. Personal anonymity breaks in the public media not only may discourage timid prospects, they may threaten the anonymity breaker's own sobriety, by violating the spirit of the AA program and traditions.
Alcoholics who have recovered through our program are themselves the strongest attraction that AA has. When people are asked what led him to seek AA help, the answer given most often is, an AA member. Their chances would have been slim if all of us had remained completely in hiding. But many of us have chosen to tell our friends, neighbors, employers, co-workers, doctors, or spiritual advisors that we are in AA, and when we do so, we are not breaking our anonymity in the meaning of this tradition. Suppose a sick alcoholic never has the good fortune to meet an AA. How is such a person going to find us? The search will be difficult if the local group thinks it should be anonymous, too. The tradition is talking about personal anonymity. Remember, alcoholics will not be attracted to AA if they don't know that it exists or if they have distorted, unfavorable impressions of its members or its program. Giving the general public an accurate picture of AA is the chief job of our public information committees. In addition, they often carry the message to certain groups, from police officers to personnel directors, whose work includes contact with active alcoholics. The 12th tradition states, anonymity is the spiritual foundation of all our traditions, ever reminding us to place principles before personalities. Anonymity, as we observe it in AA, is at root a simple expression of humility. When we use the 12 steps to recover from alcoholism, we are each trying to achieve real humility, to put our self-respect on a solid base of truth, rather than on fantasies about ourselves. When we use the 12 traditions to work together in AA, we are all trying to achieve humility. As individual members, by recognizing our true place in AA. As a fellowship, by recognizing AA's true place in the world. Tradition 1 reminds each of us that we are not recovering on our own, that we should control our personal desires and ambitions in order to guard the unity of our group and our fellowship. We ought not, Tradition 2, fancy ourselves as big shots in AA, no matter what office we hold. All of us are just alcoholics together, and in our groups we are not entitled, Tradition 3, to rule on the qualifications of other alcoholics seeking the same help that we've had. Yes, a group needs humility too. It may make its name public, but in the spirit of anonymity it should see the whatever group as merely part of a bigger whole. Tradition 4, careful in every enterprise to consider the welfare of all the other groups that make up AA. In both group and individual activities, we should remember what the full name of our fellowship is. It does not represent any established religion, nor is it a new religion. We are not evangelists or gurus out to save humanity. We are anonymous alcoholics trying to help other alcoholics. Tradition 5.
In the rising battle against alcoholism, we ought not let our pride in AA mislead us into linking our fellowship with other agencies, in order to bid for a share in their power, prestige, and funds. If we keep Traditions 6 and 7 in mind, we will instead direct all our efforts toward AA's own unique purpose. When we go on 12th step calls, we should not tell ourselves how noble we are for doing such valuable work without pay. The meaning of 12th step work cannot be measured in money, Tradition 8, and we have received advance pay for it, in coin of far greater worth, our very lives. In the same tradition, it suggested that a service center maintains AA humility by paying its employees decent wages, rather than considering AA so virtuous an outfit that employment there is a favor. When we are given special responsibilities within AA, Tradition 9 defines these as opportunities to serve, not titles to flaunt. The humility of the fellowship itself is safeguarded by Tradition 10, with the refusal to set ourselves up as general authorities, swinging our collective weight around in the public arena. We do not want to sell our program as a surefire remedy in the extravagant terms of a promotional campaign, Tradition 11, or dramatize it by identifying noted people in AA, thereby implying that recovery has been for each of us an individual accomplishment. As Tradition 12 reminds us, we have something stronger than our human personalities to rely on. Our principles come first, and they are not our own invention. They reflect eternal spiritual values. With this tradition, both as individuals and as a fellowship, we humbly acknowledge our dependence on a power higher than ourselves. This we owe to AA's future, to place our common welfare first. Street.